I mean, would you agree to say that the mind is just a muscle and it needs to be, you know, exercised?
Life is a gift. It's not happening to us. Life is happening for us. And that the challenges and resistance we feel in life is the same resistance that lifting weights provides. It builds physical muscle. The resistance when things aren't working according to our plan, right? The little plan up here, that resistance is building our muscle for living.
You slip, you fall, you break your back. That's tough. But hold your head up. You served in the military. If you got out on military discharge, that's part of the process. That's just your path.
I was grateful. That was the most amazing thing is I wasn't screaming, I don't want to die, call the ambulance. I was like, I need an ambulance right now. And so I was waiting in my office, and people in the office said, how you doing, Steve? They were so worried. I said, I don't know how my body's doing, and I'm grateful.
Welcome to I'm Up, He Sees Me, I'm Down, the show where we explore the real stories of resilience, faith, and leadership from the battlefield to the boardroom and beyond. This show is proudly sponsored by Project Icon, helping leaders rise with purpose and integrity. I'm your host, Mike Turner, and I'm honored to have you with us today. Let's dive into the conversation.
Here we go. Here we go. Motivated. 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 Shoot shot. Shoot shot.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to I'm Up, He Sees Me, I'm Down. Today is our inaugural podcast. I'm super excited about this, and I am joined by someone who really has done this a few times. I'll say it that way. And I'm excited to kind of dig in and kind of pick his brain and really just kind of understand some of the philosophies and things that he works on and the things that he does in business, in life, and really just see where the alignments are and kind of go from there. My hope is for many of my podcasts is we take the gloves off. You know, let's not beat around the bush. Let's talk how it is. Let's say how it is. And in the end, we call this our opinion. So it's really hard to argue with someone's opinion. But we're going to talk through it. We're going to have a great day today. And again, my guest is Steve Lentini. Steve comes to us and, well, you know what? Let me just let him say it. And I'll chime in on some questions. Let me introduce Steve. Steve, welcome to my podcast. I'm so super glad to have you here. How you doing?
Mike, I'm first of all grateful to be a part of your inaugural podcast.
Thank you.
And honored with your background and all the things that you've done to share some of what I've gone through and then to hear what you've gone through. And I think really it's going to make an impact on people's lives. And that's the key. I think that
Absolutely.
is helping people. And in my theory, they have to prove it to themselves. So I'm an author and a speaker, and I'm living in New York City in Staten Island, which for some people is not officially a borough of New York City, but it is. I've been told that by people who think it's funny, and I laugh. It's okay if they don't think we're a borough, but and it's funny because Staten Island has tried to secede from New York City a few times, and it didn't work.
Well, it sounds a little like Texas.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, no, that's awesome. And, you know, I've been through New York, and I'll tell you, my experience is a jackknife U-Haul right before the bridge. So there you go. That's a story for another time. But yeah, that was an experience. So, but thank you again. Yeah. So more than a handful of books you've written, right? That's impressive. Published author. That's great. I mean, that means someone else also likes your books. That says something, and can't beat that. So talk to me about what's your favorite book? What's the one thing that you really enjoyed writing?
Well, I think I loved Sage Advice because I did research on people who left us with what I call wisdom for living. And there's 62 sages in there. Well, 61 because I put some of my own quotes in. And I went back to Lao Tzu and Marcus Aurelius and Cicero and and Martin Luther King and Rosa
Good company.
Parks and
Yeah.
Helen Keller, and then there's many who are living, Deepak Chopra and John Maxwell and Eckhart Tolle. So there's 62 sages and the advice that they gave. And I chime in on some, and on some I say, man, there's nothing I can add to this person, right? And what they left us for wisdom. And it's fascinating that we still don't pay attention to it. We still don't. I mean, Cicero said something that shocked me in like 160 BC. He said, politicians aren't born, they're excreted. And we haven't learned anything. And we're still electing people who won't have a dialogue, that won't talk to one another. And it really seems to be amplified. And what I talk about is small-minded thinking. I trademarked the acorn brain, and I chose the acorn for the amygdala to represent, instead of a walnut, because people have said to me, Steve, the amygdala looks like a walnut. But I say, how many people know what a walnut tree looks like? They know what an oak tree looks like.
Yeah.
And for the acorn to become an oak, it has to be smashed open, crushed into the ground, buried in the dark. And then it takes many years of surviving all kinds of challenges like humans to finally become that wise old oak tree. So that's what I'm hoping for, helping people expanding from small-minded thinking to limitless thinking, which is why I did the research for over a year on sage advice and wrote it, because I thought, well, here's a way. Let's give people things that have been said over the years, thousands of years, and then right up to modern times, that give us a map. It gives us a roadmap. So I really enjoyed writing that book. And I think the next one is No BS Coaching, where the subtitle is Wake Up from the BS Stories You Tell Yourself. And I'm not exempt. I tell myself, I catch it, though. That's the thing. I catch small-minded thinking when I'm judging something or judging someone, and I feel my body wanting to react. The brain wants to convince us that the past is real, and it remembers every emotional response we've had, and then it takes over, kind of like driving, right? We're afraid to drive in the beginning, then we learn, and then subconscious takes over. What I didn't realize is it's the same for all of our emotional responses. So that leads to small-minded thinking. When we react, we are now taken over by the brain.
Right.
And many people are doing research today that we can reprogram our minds. And that's a big part of my work.
I mean, would you agree to say that the mind is just a muscle and it needs to be, exercised?
Yeah. I say that about challenges, and that really it's life. Life is a gift. It's not happening to us. Life is happening for us.
Absolutely.
And that the challenges and resistance we feel in life is the same resistance that lifting weights provides. It builds physical muscle, but resistance, when things aren't working according to our plan, right, the little plan up here,
right,
that resistance is building our muscle for living.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great question. Thank you.
Oh, no, that's great. And it reminds me of something that, I once read where, when God, your power to be, whoever, the supreme, however you look at it from a universal standpoint, but there's something greater than us. When we want to be empowered and be turned into something greater than us, it doesn't happen by gifting us blessings. It happens by tearing us down, like you said. I could speak all day about boot camp, and I think that's a good analogy in a lot of ways for our military folk, is that when you go to boot camp, you go to basic training or whatever, and you're going through that process, they're not building you up. They're tearing you down, right? They're changing a mindset. They're getting you ready for the fleet, for the military, for whatever the next step is. But eventually they build you up after that. And I think that, really holds true. And I think a lot of people miss that. They miss that mark, maybe because they didn't do boot camp, maybe because they don't have a faith that they're following. There's a lot of reasons for it, I'm sure, but I think the caveat is when you hit something that is a barrier, is something in your life, look at it as this is going to make me stronger, and I need this in order to be stronger for what's next to come.
Without a doubt.
I love that. So talk to me. Any military affiliation? Any family in the military?
Well, so my father was in the Navy first, and then when
Okay.
World War II broke out, he went in the Army, and then
Raw Army, I
came
guess.
home and had 7 children over 19 years. My oldest brother was 19 when I
Big
was
family.
born, and I didn't meet him until he was 29 and I was 10. And he came home in a staff sergeant's uniform with the khaki color and all the gold, and he
Yeah.
had, I didn't know it was staff sergeant. To me, at 10 he looked like a general to me. And so and then my sister Lorraine was born a year later than my brother Frank, and he was in the National Guard after the Army, so he went in the Army. My brother Bob went in the Navy and broke his back on a ship and then was medically discharged, and sadly he's no longer with us either.
That's a common thing too. I don't want to interrupt you too much, but I wanted to
Go
point
ahead.
out that that is a common thing of military discharge, and that's okay. Not you're on a ship, it's slippery. You slip, you fall, you break your back. But that's tough. But hold your head up. You served in the military. If you got out on military discharge, that's part of the process. That's just your path.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and he was a hardworking guy, and then my twin brother, even though we got high draft numbers in the Vietnam War lottery, my brother Seb was doing his second tour in Vietnam when we got the draft numbers. I didn't go because I had a 366 draft number, or 355, something like that. I think it was 365 days. Yeah, 355.
Okay.
So I knew I didn't have to go. My brother Stan did enlist in the Army 3 or 4 years later. So he went in later on after Vietnam had ended. And he was in a Pershing missile crew, and then he ended up being a supply sergeant. I'm not sure exactly how that all happened, but yeah, a lot of influence. And then I sold a company to a guy who was an ex-Marine. He actually worked for the company that bought my company, but he recommended to the owner, the family business, it was much bigger business than my distribution company. He was selling me. He was my salesman, and I knew he was a Marine, and we talked about his experience, and he recommended my company be purchased by his company, and I worked for him for 16 years. Big influence in my life.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. So, if you ever work with a Marine, or if you've worked with Marines, they're built a little bit different, right? And I can only speak to myself. I'm a Gen Xer. I went in '94, got out around 2003. But I want to say that everything I try to take on with grit, tenacity, and I give it everything I've got. And I think that's really true to a lot of Marines that I've met. I've not met a Marine that I didn't really see like this guy is a go-getter. What's your take on it? How 16 years? That's a long time to have someone as a boss. So
Yeah, well, he was definitive about his leadership, but he was also a guide. So he had a lot of wisdom, and he never made quick judgments. It was like he understood he wasn't in the battlefield, and he needed to develop people. So he took some of those skills, though, and used them in a positive way to develop people. So he wasn't afraid to deliver the tough news, what some might call a gut punch, or something that you would feel a little confronted about. And it helped people grow for people that were open to it.
right,
And I understood his background, and I respected it, and I made sure to listen. Not always, because the
Right.
human mind, it works in mysterious ways.
right.
And he made a difference. I paid attention to him. I became salesman of the year. I made a tremendous amount of money, not worrying about receivables and inventory and cash flow. He had great advice saying, why don't you sell out and join us? And it worked out wonderfully. I'm so grateful for the experience. And for the owners he worked for, they were family business. The Baums, Jerry Baum and his wife Louise, and his daughter later on, Meredith, fantastic people, salt of the earth people.
I love that. I love the family business. I love, that's where I'm at. That's where my heart's at. Small family businesses. So it's good to hear that you had that experience and similar.
I think of them, all of them, often. I think that, of course, Meredith is still alive, and of course Andy is still alive, and he's now in his 80s, and I can tell you that he's fit as a fiddle.
That's awesome. That's great. So let's take a step back and kind of, I want to understand a little bit about what Lord and Lentini is. So what is that? I mean, obviously you're the founder. So tell me a little bit about that organization, that company.
Well, on November 13th, 2002, I was doing a seminar. At that time, I owned the license for a Sandler sales training program. It was like a franchise. And one second I was fine, the next second I needed an ambulance. And I knew it. It felt like I had been knifed or shot. I wasn't, but it felt like something exploded in my body. And I was grateful. That was the most amazing thing is I wasn't screaming, I don't want to die, call the ambulance. I was like, I need an ambulance right now. And so I was waiting in my office, and people in the office said, how you doing, Steve? They were so worried. I said, I don't know how my body's doing, and I'm grateful.
Yeah.
And then the EMTs came and asked me the same question, and they were just like, oh my God. When I gave them the same answer, when they heard gratitude, they thought, man, this guy needs a shrink and an ER doctor. And 5 days later, I had two friends at the end of my bed. I was right away in intensive care. I wasn't sure at that time exactly what was going on.
Right.
And I flatlined. 1 second with the two friends at the end of my bed. The next second, I was one with everything and nothing. I was one with God.
Oh, wow. Got chills.
Immense light, immense mercy, grace. I mean, words do not describe it. I can tell you that in the Bible, I think Philippians, it said that what awaits us is beyond all human understanding. And that's true.
Yeah.
And there was no past or future, only the now, which I remind people, God is everywhere. God is never absent. That's my next book, by the way, which is The Search for God is Over. God is in the now.
Right.
Stop searching, because be grateful and look around and appreciate all the blessings and people in your life, especially those that bother you and bug you and are willing to challenge you, to tell you things you'd rather not hear, or to risk your wrath. That's God knocking on your door. And I wasn't listening to the knocks. I was 50 when this occurred. God had to hit me with a 2x4. And I can tell you that it was the most amazing experience of my life, and it feels like it was 5 minutes ago every day.
Yeah, you just can see there's a few things in memory that you can actually go back to, and it feels like it was yesterday. And I think it has to really seep in that brain cell of yours, right? It really has to get in there and build those trenches. And that's exactly what your experience sounds like. It sounds like you built those trenches, and now you're like, you can replay that over and over again. And that's like fuel to keep, to take a different path.
Yeah.
Love it. So what was it like?
Well, it was a scene and a scene and a scene. And I couldn't put them all together because, like I said, there was no past or future. So it went from, I knew I was one with everything and nothing, one with God. And it was a consciousness presence. And it was a mercy and grace. And the light was the first thing that overwhelmed me. And no body. Of course, you don't have this frame of mind. And you don't have this little thinker I call the small-minded thinker, the acorn brain. That's gone. The next scene was a life review. And the only thing that flashed before me was the lives I had touched, the good I had done. And Jesus has said that he came to remind us that God, we're forgiven, that he came for that purpose. Yep. There was no mention of my sin. And I can't say I was not a sinner. I can't say that. And it flashed before me all the people I had touched. Of course, family and friends, I could sense their presence. Saw all the times I helped people move and cook barbecues, and then even people I gave money to in the street or helped in any way, including people I smiled at.
Oh, wow.
We don't know how we touch people. We don't know. And I was 50, had no idea how many lives I had touched. The next scene was a voice I cannot describe to this day. I think it's God, because I'm doing the best I can to say what was said to me. Stay or go. And my consciousness surrendered with thy will be done. Stay there or come back here. It did not matter I didn't have the ego.
Right.
And it was similar to the gratitude I was feeling while waiting for the ambulance. Somehow I sensed a divine presence with me. I never feared for whatever was next. It didn't matter. Stay there, come back here. And the next second I was back in intensive care. And the two friends were there still. And I couldn't speak for a while. I was trying to process. Now I could put it all together.
Right.
Past and the future come back.
Yeah.
And I said finally, after a time, hey, something happened. And they said, oh, yeah, in unison. They responded right away. You flatlined. The nurses and doctors came rushing in. Your alarms were going off. And they said, out, this is it. Call his family. And after a time, they said 20-something minutes later, a nurse came out and said, okay, you can come back in. He's stable for now. And little did I know it was going to be 100 days in the hospital, 60 straight, 40 out of the next 60, and 6 months out of work. My pancreas had exploded. I have a calcium blockage in my pancreatic duct. And then 5 days later, because your body builds up fluid to protect you from the digestive enzymes,
Right.
I had a anterior myocardial infarction, congestive heart failure because of the fluid.
Right.
And I survived both of them and today have no symptoms. I have to take a digestive enzyme, and I can tell you everything works perfectly. And I have less than 10% of it remaining because after 5.5 weeks, I got a second opinion. I was in a little community hospital in Massachusetts, and I had the name of Dr. Peter Banks because, interesting, right, how life works. The people that bought my company, the Baum family, Jerry and Louise, had passed away at that point from pancreatic cancer. And they gave me the name of Dr. Peter Banks, was treating them. And I remembered that name while I was in the hospital, right, 5.5 weeks. I said, I think I need Dr. Peter Banks. And then my endoscopics guy who was at this hospital said, you know, that's amazing. I said, why? He said, well, I studied under Dr. Peter Banks. He was my professor and my teacher, and I worked for him at Brigham and Women's. They called him. He sent an ambulance, said, Mr. Lentini, you need surgery, and I can't do it, which is what I was told in that little hospital, that they couldn't do surgery. And I had a feeling I needed it. And anyway, so they did surgery, and many miracles occurred. Many.
Of course, because none of that is chance, right? That is not chance.
No.
The fact that you had the best in his field helping you, you know.
He's world renowned for
World renowned.
pancreatic.
Exactly. That's not by choice. That's on my chance. That's God going, putting his hand on you and saying, this is what you need to get right. Like when you're under his blessing, I'll tell you, you'll start to see these little, I want to say them, little Lego blocks fall into place. You don't really see them when it's happening, but you see it after, when you're starting to look back going, oh, that's why all this happened to me. That's why I have all this skill set. And that's why I wrote all these books and everything. Yeah, I love it.
$24,000 came in the mail as people started to hear after I was in about a month, 4 weeks, and 5 job offers while I was laying in the hospital. And which, you know, I looked back on it and said, oh, I guess I got to give up that license. This is God saying, take a job and get out of that work, because it was never going to be my own. I couldn't write a book.
Yeah.
You could submit a book because it was a franchise, right? And they had rights to that. You could submit a book, they'd do a wraparound, but it would never have been my own work. So today I'm blessed that I can do my own work, and that wouldn't have come without the grace of God and whatever people call it. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm going to call it God.
Yeah.
And I'm going to let all my guests on this show call it God if they want. I love the little piece where you know, coming on the other side, you actually got to experience something that not a lot of people get to experience, life after death.
No.
A lot of people, they walk through this whole thing and it's just not what you think it is. And it's good that you're putting this together, this material, you're explaining that and all that. I'm going to do
They call it what's next, not death.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's take a note check here. I want to make sure I've really got to cover everything that you wanted to talk about. Is there anything we left out? Anything that you think would be good for my audience, your audience to know?
The work I do, I noticed that was one of the questions you might ask in the prep. And my goal is to help people expand from the small-minded thinking that's in their brain, that voice that most people have. in their head, talking to them 24 hours a day. And just to get to the place where you observe it and notice what it's trying to enroll you in, right? Trying to make people wrong and trying to get you to react to certain people, and to look at that all as a gift, that the brain is actually begging to be trained. That it's like a 4-year-old in a toy aisle, and you just told the kid, no, don't put that truck. No, I'm taking that truck out of the cart. You can't have that truck, and the child goes into a tantrum. The brain is doing the same thing, especially when it's what I call lower frequency energy. We know when it's lower frequency energy, because other than that, we wouldn't be saying, I apologize, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that. Higher frequency energy takes a pause. We have to pause. And that's the work I do with leaders today, to help them influence and model for their companies, to build a culture that talks about higher frequency energy and lower frequency energy. And let's all think about that before we react. Let's respond, and let's consider that we're all here to help one another, that's our job, to do good in life. And I don't go into the whole story in every company. With the leaders I do, and then sometimes the leader will ask me, hey, share the whole story with my team, please. So that our job is to do good. That's what made sense to me when I got back in my body. There was no mention of my sins. Certainly I had them. God is tracking the good we do.
Right.
Thanks to Jesus and all the prophets that talked about, hey, don't worry about making mistakes.
Right.
Did you learn to walk without falling? No, I and people raise their hand. I say, anybody here to raise your hand if you learned to walk without falling? Very few people raise their hand. And what one guy did once was he was making a funny of it. Well, I don't remember, but I proudly learned and got up and walked right away. We fall in life, and we're forgiven because we're here to learn from those mistakes. How would we learn at all if we never made mistakes?
It's a process, right? It's an experience.
Yeah.
Our soul wants to experience this life. Nothing is by chance. I use the analogy. I've read this somewhere, or this came into my thoughts some point, where I feel like in a lot of ways our soul decided it wanted to walk through a grocery store and pick the cereal box that said, I want to experience, you name it, executive level career. I want to experience the military. I want to experience it. You name it, right? I want to experience this. They start putting together. I want to experience being homeless. And so they put all those in their cart, and then they check out. And the next thing you know, they're born in their experience in life based on that cart of experience they wanted to do. So that's how I put it together.
I agree. I think that we're here to experience the fullness of life, that God gave us the gift of life. And so many people in Western society are living from the outside in. They're looking for validation from a title or an experience. And when we realize that, and it's been said in the Bible, that it's smarter to build up treasures for the next life. This life is so brief. Let's do good. Remember how you feel when you do good, and make that the emphasis every day, that I'm here to do good. And what happens when you start living from the inside out? Everything makes you happy instead of waiting for something. I'll be happy when I get that job title, when I'm president of the company. It's a question. I'll be happy when. When?
Yeah.
So
get rid of the material stuff. Stop chasing material things. Stop chasing the American dream, whatever that is, and start chasing a path of righteousness.
Yeah.
Right?
One of doing good. Why do you feel good when you do good? There might be a reason.
There might be a reason for that. Absolutely. So when you say you got to find that higher voice, that higher frequency, is that meditation, or what is that?
Definitely meditation helps. Being grounded in one's body, deep breathing can help, especially when we can feel the tension rising when we feel like we got to defend ourselves, or we've got to make somebody else wrong, or we've got to tell them off, somebody in a store, or waiting in line, because it could be little things. We're just waiting in line and people are mad that we're taking so long to check out, or whatever it is. That's lower frequency energy. The higher frequency energy is, hey, why don't you go ahead in front of me? Hold the door for people. Let people in traffic. Give a few bucks instead of judging the guy on the street. Our journey is our business, right? My journey is my business. And everyone else's journey is none of my business anymore. This brain tried to convince me it was years ago, right? Trying to tell people the right way. Today I say, prove it to yourself, folks. Make your life that science experiment and measure how you feel when you do higher frequency and make higher frequency choices. And notice how you feel when you make lower frequency choices, because people feel it. And there's a higher return on investment for time spent with higher frequency energy. And neuro researchers are actually doing some of this research. And R.J. Spiner wrote the book Super Consciousness. It's one of his books. And he talks about that. If you notice it and spend some time, that didn't make me feel very well. Or these people don't make me feel very well. Now, if it's a committed spouse, I would have been married 897 times if I left every time I experienced lower frequency in a relationship. But what I learned was to have a conversation. Hey, that didn't feel so good. Can we talk about that? Yeah. Because I was committed in the relationship.
That's the key.
That's the key, is to use it, not to run away. Now, are there situations we need to remove ourselves from? Yes. And we know if it's lower frequency energy, there are situations we need to remove ourselves from and join with people that uplift us, and do work that uplifts us.
So if someone wants to kind of reach that higher frequency, what's a little tip or technique you could give them? Maybe it's a breathing technique or something that could help them start doing that.
Sure. Deepak Chopra talks about it, breathing in slowly, exhaling slowly to the count of 5. And I wrote in my book, How to Train Your Mind, written by a dragon. I was born in the year of the dragon, so I took license with that last year. And in the book, I say what I do. I get up and say, this is a fantastic day. I can't wait to see what life or God brings my way. I say God, and I can say to people, if you want to say life brings my way or the universe, it's fine. It sets the brain in a mode of whatever comes is meant for you. It's meant for us. Because if it missed us, it wasn't meant to reach us. If it reaches us, now that might be for now, right? If it misses you, it might not be for now, right? It wasn't meant to reach you for now. If it reaches one, instead of rejecting it and saying, oh, I don't want to feed the dogs now. Oh, I don't want to go shopping, or, oh, this person, I'm not letting them in traffic. If it reaches us, it was meant for us, whatever it is, right? I'm giving little tiny things examples, but it could be the boss that delivers like a resounding dress down, right? And it's reached you. It could be a task at the job that you say, oh, I hate it when I do it. Hating it when you do it is a lower frequency energy. You might as well do it when you feel higher frequency, or train your brain to say, you really don't like to do this, but I'm going to bring my full attention to it.
Positive thinking, positive thought process, putting it out there. I couldn't agree more. Those are all absolutely
not Pollyanna. I'm not expecting people to be Pollyanna about it, but to be in charge and manage our energy.
Yeah,
we can do it because we make choices all day long to either be upset or accept what's in front of us. We more easily accept what's in front of us because when we love it. When we don't, that's the challenge. That's life.
And the end result is higher emotional intelligence, right? That's ultimately what you're building in. You're just now, you have a stronger emotional intelligence than you did yesterday because you keep working it. It goes back to the brain being a muscle, working that muscle. For me, I love the technique. I try to take just 5-10 minutes in the morning. I just sit still. I do the breathing, and I just kind of let things come, right? Let kind of flow, whatever's kind of coming to my consciousness. Just try to open, clear my mind. And then I start my day.
If it's sitting by the ocean, going for a walk in nature, meditating, it doesn't have to be meditating, whatever grounds one person, to remind them that we have a gift that's very temporary.
Yes.
We have a gift and it's gone. I could have been gone 23 years ago, November 18th is my second birthday. 23 years ago
18th.
is
So
the anniversary
it's coming up.
of it's coming up. And I'm grateful every day. And I realized I spent a lot of time being not so grateful before that day and letting my brain run me instead of me running it. And I know now I only have this moment. That's it. And God is never absent. God is in the now. That's all there was.
Right.
I call it the now on steroids.
I
There was
love
no past and no future.
That's it.
So, okay, God, you're here.
Yeah. What do you want? What? Your will be done, right? What do you want me to do today? What accomplishments can I be blessed
How
to?
can I help? Yeah.
Yeah. How can I help? How can I be a team player? Oh man, you know, it's that escalation for me. It's like when I left the Marines and I was a big team player in the Marines. You know, all that squad leader, that kind of stuff. So this is just that next evolution for me, and it was always part of the path. Steve, I enjoyed having you on my podcast. Thank you so much.
Grateful. Mike.
Tell my audience how they can reach you, what's the best way to get a hold of you.
Sure. Here, I can use one of my books to show how my name is spelled. This is one I wrote this year. Your brain is brilliant, but it's not always your friend. And if they email me, steve@stevelentini.com, or you go to Steve Lentini, stevelentiniauthor.com, and you'll see all my books. And I'm glad to help people. I give everyone that reaches out to me a free coaching. I don't try to convince anybody of anything. I say, listen, if I ever tell you I found the way to live your life, run away. You got to prove it to me.
If I got all the answers, then we've got a problem.
I'm still working on myself.
Yeah.
When people make it an experiment of higher energy and making the choice to do good, it's amazing what unfolds, at least for me. And I just encourage people, try it for a while. Try it. If you've lived 40 years, try 40 years now, the next 40, doing good and living in higher frequency energy and honoring whatever your source is for you, right? Whatever that higher power is, to have a faith in something larger, because we live in something. The brain needs to call it a universe to give a definition. We don't know. Truly.
We don't know.
We don't.
Right. We don't know what to call it. We don't know what to name it. We just know what we've read and what we know, and it's not enough.
No.
So, wonderful, wonderful, Steve. Thank you again for joining us. My audience, thank you for listening. Again, we've got all the show notes out there. So if you need any of that stuff, you're always welcome to reach me at he's up, he sees me, I'm down. And thanks again for the podcast. Thanks again, Steve. Loved it.
You're welcome, Mike. Can't wait to have you on my podcast.
Absolutely.